Hi, welcome to section 3.1 where we're marking diagrams. Today, I want you to say that you can mark the diagrams, show parallel congruent segments, and angles. The first thing we have here is these two shapes, and there's a line going through here and here. And how we write that, this is a segment DC, and if it's just a segment, we make a little segment on the top. We're going to say that that's congruent to segment EF. So that's EF with a little segment on the top. So this little equal sign with a squiggly on top of it is, is saying that they're the same size. This is the same size as that. Um, when things are the same size, we say that they are congruent. Here we have two angles. Here's D and H. I was supposed to draw in here. Those are congruent. And what we would write is angle D is congruent to angle H. Another way that we can name angles is with three letters. We can go ADC, angle ADC is congruent to angle GHE, angle GHE. Now keep in mind, when you use three letters, the vertex that you're on has to be that point that's in the middle. So see D and H. Sometimes you can label them with both, and there are other times where you have to use the three letters if there are more than one angle on a certain vertex. We'll get to that later. Now, congruent shapes. If these two shapes are congruent, we can say that everything is congruent in these shapes. And how we will label that is we will say A, B, C, D is congruent to. Now we have to match what matches A in this one. Looks like G matches A. B is the longer one going down, so that would go from G to H. E would match up with C, and D will match up with F. Now once we write ABCD is congruent to GHEF, we know that there are many things that are congruent. We know angle A is congruent to angle G, so angle A and angle G, those are congruent. We know angle B is congruent to angle H, B and angle H. Again, C and E. And then finally this last one, D and F. All right, now there's more information that we know on this. We could also look at these first two letters, AB and GH. AB is this segment. We can say that is equal to GH, or congruent. Also the next two letters, BC and HE. BC is congruent to HE. And then the third letters, CD and EF. And then finally, the first and last of each of those will be congruent. So AD and FG. So just by writing one statement of congruence here, we know all of these things are congruent to all of these. So there's lots of information that this one statement will tell us. All right, perpendicular lines. We learned about perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines are two lines that meet at 90 degrees. How we show that is we just have a little right angle there showing that these meet at 90 degrees. Now that also means that this side is 90 degrees also. How we write that is CD is perpendicular to AB. Now these are both segments in this drawing. Now this is perpendicular. It looks like an upside down capital T. That means that these are perpendicular. It's kind of a weird way to write it, but from here on out, that you'll see that quite a bit in this class. Midpoints. Midpoints, if I put it on here, it's the point in the middle. Now how we label it on a diagram, we show that this side, AM, is congruent to MB, and then we know that that is the midpoint, M. An angle bisector. AC is an angle bisector of BAD. So what that means is it cut the angle in two. So this side, or that angle, is going to be congruent to that angle. So BAC is congruent to CAD. All right, now when we're labeling figures, here we have a figure over here, and let's label the congruent segments. Well, we know these two segments are congruent, so you can say AE is congruent to AF. Now it says label congruent angles. Well, this is a 2 and this is a 2, so we could say angle D is congruent to angle B, or we could say EDC and FBC are congruent. We also know angle C and angle A are congruent, so angle A is congruent to angle C. Alrighty, moving on. Now, are these congruent? We have 5, 5, 6, 6, and 4, 4. Will those have to be congruent? And the answer is yes. If all the sides are congruent on one, match up with the sides congruent on the other, we'll say it's congruent. Now, how would you label it? Well, we could say triangle ABC is congruent to, well, what does A match up with over here? It's between the 4 and the 5, and that would match up with D. So that would be triangle D, and then B is between 5 and 6, which is E, and then F has to go in the middle. So that's how we label it. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, I have two practice ones that I want you to try. So hopefully if you're watching this at home, you can pause the video in class. Also pause the video. And try to label these three things on the diagram and see how well you do. All right, hopefully you have finished labeling these on the diagram, and I will go through to make sure you did it correctly. BAC is a right angle, so BAC is a right angle. So that means we put in a little box there. D is the midpoint of BC. So if that's the midpoint, we have to say that this side is congruent to this side. Now it says AD. Now this, if it goes off in one direction, we say that's a ray. That's a ray AD. And this is an angle bisector. So that means this side is going to be congruent to this side because AD cut this angle in half. Hopefully you did that correct. Now the next one that I want you to try, take a look at all what this says over here, label it on your drawing, and pause the video and see if you can do it. All right, hopefully you're done. It says HG is perpendicular to DE. So HG and DE are perpendicular. We'll draw that line in. DG and EF are congruent. So DG and EF are congruent. Those don't look too congruent, but I'll go with it. Measure angle G is congruent to measure of angle F. And FI is an angle bisector. So this side is going to be congruent with this. Now I first put one dash in here. I should probably fix that a little bit. Looks sloppy. First I put one dash in there and then I realized that I already used one dash for this angle. So I have to go in and put two dashes. Now if you have all of that, That looks pretty good, and you are understanding this material. So then you can move to your homework and see how well you can do with that. Good luck.